Your Excellency, Gusti Kanjeng Ratu Mangkubumi, Honorable Professor Edi Swandi Hamid, Rector of Universitas Widya Mataram, respectable guests, fellow speakers, and audience, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. While we're waiting for the slides to be displayed, it is my honor to be standing here, and thank you, Universitas Widya Mataram, for having me for this occasion. Right. Checking the... Perhaps, okay, just before that, let me show you the title. And perhaps I'd like to get assistance from the committee to browse through the slides. Thank you. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. As you see here, today and the past 2 days, we have been speaking about variety of disciplines and issues from multiple sectors and multiple perspectives. And here I am speaking in front of you with the background of law and legal studies, trying to see certain aspects of this big theme for the Indonesia to get after G20 Bali Summit, what is next for Indonesia on the global stage. From my experience and disciplines from learning the data protection law, so I'd like to share with you today how the issues of data governance in Indonesia or in any country for that matter will assist and support the standing of the country, especially in ensuring the digital economy transformation. And as we know, this digital economy transformation is considered as one of the main objectives as had been achieved by the G20 summit in Bali last November. So we move to the next slide where I'm showing you the declaration of Bali summit. And this is what we have from the long declaration of the G20 Digital Economy, G20 Bali Declaration 2022. And among others, this is where I come from regarding the digital economy transformation. And as we look at this slide, we see an overview of the digital economy transformation framework. For the first one, for example, it says that the governments of G20 recognizes that digital connectivity is very essential for digital inclusion and digital transformation, because this is always the first thing that we are talking about when it comes to digital economy. Therefore, among the first thing that a government needs to ensure is that every government has a very sustainable and good infrastructure to ensure the connectivity of everyone, that no one shall be left behind, and therefore the infrastructure shall be developed from time to time to ensure that everyone is connected. Though in Indonesia, we realize that so far around 70 to 80% people are being connected one way or another. So we still have some way to go to ensure as full connectivity as possible. And also, the declaration recognizes that a resilient, safe, and secure online environment is necessary to enhance the confidence and trust in the digital economy. So it talks about the sustainability of the system, sustainability of the computer network system, to make sure it is safe, it is secure, and it is resilient from attacks, yeah, either from internal or external. This is also another infrastructure when it comes to digital economy. As I'm going to show you further, that our digital infrastructure is not immune from attacks, from threats, and so on. So we try our best that the infrastructure we have is secure. Another issue is how we address the challenges of the digital divides. As we know and we realize, especially from the recent COVID-19 pandemic exercises, not everyone is having a good connection or not being served enough with the information and communications facilities. So students from Jakarta or Yogyakarta, big cities, are very much privileged, while we see students from remote places are still to some extent underprivileged when it comes to digital connectivity as well as the digital services. But other than that, also we have other issues such as data privacy and data protection, because these issues, unless we settle these issues, people will not feel convenience when it comes to going through digital economy. Then another area of another component of this framework is there's a need to counter disinformation. As we realize I think the past COVID-19 pandemic crisis, we've got so much information about the virus, information about the fatalities, about the incidents, but then it turns out to be fake news. So this is also a big issue, especially in crisis time. We really need to have information which is free from this disinformation or fake news. Other things also, there are things that threaten the information infrastructure, from the cyber threats as well as online abusers. Then also we need to enable data free flow with trust, because governments or states start to have this cross-border data flows with the emergence as well as developments of the international trade. Certainly, it is not only that we need to exchange goods or get people to move, but now we come to see data also needs to move from one place to another, from one country to another. So in this digital economy, we should also focus on how to make sure that the data movement between one country to another is being properly protected. And also the other component is the acknowledgement by the Bali G20 Bali declaration that data is very critical for development and economic growth as well as social well-being. So this is also taken from the World Bank publication talking about the data for better lives. So this also can guide us when it comes to digital transformation. We know that data is very crucial now, where the data should be maximized for our lives, professionally as well as personally. So it requires us to forge a new social contract for data, then also for us to increase data use and reuse. And not only use, but also reuse to realize a greater value, and as well as to create more equitable access to the benefits of data, foster trust, and through safeguards. Because when it comes to exchanging and using data, so we are prone to misuses. And that would require, as also recognized by the World Bank, that we need to have an integrated national data system. I don't know, I mean, though I'm Indonesian, but it's not so much familiar of the recent development in Indonesia. But as we know, we are moving closer to the national election next year. So this is again the time where our national registry and national data system is being tested and being scrutinized. We have been all this while, every time we go to election, always voters' data is always a problem. Yeah. So if we do have a very strong integrated national data system, then at least we will do away with this repeating problem. Just as a comparison, what we have in Malaysia, for example, There is no issue of voters data registration because it is already integrated with the national system, and in fact people don't need to register anymore. No need to register every time we have election. It is already there, but you are given actually opportunity to check whether the data is accurate, whether the data is still valid, and so on. So this is also another big task for us. Now the question for us here and towards the future, where are we now? Where are we in terms of our preparedness when it comes to digital transformation framework? Of course, digitalization around us has been very massive, and it cannot be more true when we faced the COVID-19 pandemic. Everything went digital. Yeah, from our working, playing, and learning, and shopping, and making connections, everything went digital, and we actually absorb into all this digital lifestyle. So as a matter of fact, we are already in it. But of course, the problem now, we have few hiccups here and there. Among others, what you see here on this slide, there had been so many data breaches all this while. So Indonesia, as well as, and this, of course, this is not only Indonesian problem. In any other countries, we always see day in, day out, the headlines tell us about data breaches here and there. And it is not only the private sectors being impacted. As a matter of fact, government as well as public resources are also being implicated with these data breaches. As you see in this slide, these are, you might be very familiar with some of these logos and names where perhaps your data are there. Yeah, our data are there. Then, as a matter of, based on this report, these are among the companies or entities that had been affected by data breaches. So when it comes to the context of G20, G20 has been very focusing on concerned with the issue of data protection. Because as we already mentioned in the beginning, when it comes to digital transformation framework, it really requires a very resilient, secure data system, computer system, free or hopefully free to some extent from online abusers or misuses and so on and so forth. So back in 2019 in Osaka, G20 actually came up with this draft called Osaka Track on Data Free Flow. Yeah, so almost all countries actually put their signatures except two countries, yeah, which were Indonesia and India. So Indonesia and India, of course, are very big countries, very big players within the G20, but they did not sign this document simply or rather obviously because these two countries were not prepared with their own legislation. Yeah, but it would be different today because in G20 now in this year, I mean the last year, Indonesia had recently passed the law. So Indonesia, this is, I would say, a coincidence, a very good coincidence, or perhaps it is no coincidence at all that since Indonesia was about to precede the G20, then they must be very prepared with this new law. And as we know that if the data protection law is absent, there would be many repercussions. For example, it will allow rooms for uninterrupted exploitation of the data, because data has been so misused and without scrutiny in many countries, especially if there is no such law. Then also it will threaten the civil society and individuals. It will create a distrust over digital platforms, and also at the end, a country will lose some reputation because of that. And we have seen, I will show you very quickly in some of these slides, that the issue of data protection or the absence of data protection law creates, tension in some countries, even between countries. Yeah. Because we have so many, situations where data is being misused by diverse parties, including big brothers, big data aggregators, as well as big fans. You wouldn't realize that people who really adore you and follow you and you consider them as fan, but they are among the biggest threat, yeah, to the data abusers, because they are going to follow you from time to time. So if your Twitter or your Instagram has like 10 or 20,000 followers, you may be very happy, but you also have a reason to be worried as well, because these people will know you where you are, whatever you do, and wherever you go. So also there had been tension between the US and the European Union over the exploitation or the management of personal data. So the one in 2020, the court in European Union has invalidated the agreement, yeah, between the EU and the US that allows the data transfer. You can imagine if this agreement is being invalidated, so the data transfer between two continents are being interrupted, and therefore it will it'll affect the business as well. Okay, so this is it. Sorry. And then the next slide, you see, actually, it shows you also there was a tension between the US and China over some issues, such as, if you remember, under President Trump, he came up with this declaration to ban WeChat and TikTok, which happened to be the most popular video platform at the time, because President Trump, among others, yeah, mentioned among others that this was because Chinese government had misused the data of the TikTok users from the United States for their own purpose. Then, therefore, they wanted to nationalize, yeah, these two platforms. However, this did not materialize after the presidency changes. Then it did not continue. But what we want to take from here is that the absence of data protection law and governance may create, yeah, tension not only in country but even between governments and so on.
Excuse me, Doctor, 2 minutes.
Thank you. As you see here, this is the map of the global map of those countries who already have the law. As you see, Indonesia here is still in red, but this was before, because as you see, 2021. So now Indonesia should be blue because this is among the countries who already have the data protection. So what I'm trying to show is that this is not only a national or regional work, but data protection law is an international agenda. So now we come to a new era in Indonesia where we already have a new law. So hopefully this will create some assurance to the data protection issues in Indonesia. And this was taken or quoted from the law itself, that the data protection is an amanah konstitusi, or constitutional obligation in Indonesia. So just a very quick glimpse of the law. So this is, I think, the gist what I want to say with the law here. What does it do for the digital economy? So actually, this law actually helps so much for the digital economy of Indonesia. It would regulate data processing between people, therefore create a level field. Then also the law will enumerate rights. Yeah? Therefore, it will empower consumers. Then the law also provides dispute mechanism, ensuring equality and also accountability. The law also oversees and encourages innovation, because with this law, then people will think about all this data anonymization, data storage, data security. Security will have to be enhanced, for example, and data encryption and so on. And also it will create the landscape of data accountability, because people can no longer use the data as they wish. I think I'm finishing, yeah, with this prospect and challenges. Regardless of that, we still have few challenges because this law is very new. Of course, having law is something, but having it implemented is another thing. A good law is as good as how it is implemented. So if we only have the law on paper, it doesn't really tell anything about us. But at least when it comes to the country, it shows some commitment from the country. So we really applaud the government's initiative to have it. But over here, I enlisted some of the problems and challenges in future that it is not yet done. And we still need some regulatory laws, regulatory rules in order to make the law actually workable. And last but not least is my closing remark. As you see here, digital economy transformation requires a massive data governance framework. So it will tell you the do's and the don'ts and the boundary of what to do. And then Indonesia moves one step further by creating the long overdue PDP law. Then the new legislation inspires transparency, accountability, and trust in the digital economy of Indonesia, which is a good thing, of course. And then a laudable and timely initiative with the G20 presidency, but of course with rooms to improve. And last but not least, the real question is over how to implement the law post G20 summit. And with that, I stop my presentation. Thank you for the attention and thank you for having me. Assalamu alaikum.